One room, two twin beds, $47 a night. You're 22 years old, booking from a parking lot because the Wi-Fi at home keeps cutting out before the payment clears. You check the cancellation policy 3 times before pressing confirm. Not because you plan to cancel, because knowing the exit exists is the only way you can make yourself walk through the entrance. This is where it starts, and it's going to go somewhere you cannot picture from here. Age 22, $47 a night. You find the building by the sign, not the address. The sign is missing a letter. You park too far from the entrance and walk the rest with your bag because you're not sure about the parking rules and you don't want to ask. You're 22. You don't want to ask about anything yet. The lobby smells like industrial cleaner and something underneath it you can't name. There's a plastic plant by the front desk that hasn't moved in years. You can tell by the dust on the leaves. The woman at the desk doesn't look up when you approach. You say your name. She types. She slides a keycard across the counter without eye contact. 3rd floor, elevators on the left. The tone of someone who has said it 400 times this month. You say thank you. She's already on the next screen. Room 314. You find it by counting doors. 2 twin beds. A desk bolted to the wall. Curtains the color of something that used to be burgundy. The carpet has a pattern designed specifically to hide stains. You check the corners of the bed before you sit down. You don't know where you learned to do that. You do it anyway. The air conditioner is already running. You didn't turn it on. It's been on for whoever was here before you. Sounds like a truck idling 1 block away. Constant. Low. Not loud enough to complain about. Too loud to ignore. You sit on the edge of the bed. You look around. This is it. You call your mom. She asks if the room is nice. You say yes. She asks if you ate. You say yes. Both answers are approximate. After you hang up, the room feels very quiet except for the air conditioner. So you turn on the TV. Not to watch anything, just to have something in the room that sounds like a person. You find a cooking show. A man explaining how to make pasta in a calm, unhurried voice. You watch for 20 minutes without really watching. You won't remember the channel. You won't remember the pasta. You'll remember what it felt like to hear someone explaining something simple like it mattered. Here's what nobody thinks to tell you about the first hotel room you pay for yourself. The pillow will be wrong. The shower pressure will surprise you in the wrong direction. Checkout will be earlier than you expected, and you'll panic at 11:15 even though you've been up since 8. But that's not really the point. The point is simpler. You're 22 years old. You're in a room in a town that isn't home. You got here. You figured out the parking and the key card and the elevator on the left. Nobody helped you. That's the thing sitting underneath everything else in this room. For the first time, you move through the world alone. And the world held you. $47 at a time. The first room you pay for yourself isn't about where you sleep. It's the first proof that you can handle it. Your range is small right now. Everyone starts somewhere. Age 27. $280 a night. 5 years later. Different city, different reason for the trip. Same habit of checking the cancellation policy first. But something is different this time. You didn't book the cheapest room. You looked at the standard room. Looked at it for a while. Then you scrolled up. The junior suite was $90 more per night. You booked it before you could talk yourself out of it. The check-in desk looks the same. But the person behind it is different. Not the job, the attention. She looks up when you approach. She says your name before you say it. She types something, smiles, says, "You're in one of our suites tonight." Not a room, a suite. You nod like this is something that happens to you regularly. You rehearsed how to ask about late checkout in the elevator on the way up. Had the whole sentence ready. You never asked. You didn't want her to think you were the kind of person who needed to ask about that. The door opens. It's not dramatically bigger. That's the first thing you notice. Maybe 30% more space than a standard room, but that 30% is arranged differently. There's a sofa by the window, a coffee table, a separation between where you sleep and where you just exist. You put your bag down, you sit on the sofa, not to do anything, just to sit there, just to be a person sitting on a sofa in a hotel suite, at 27 years old. You sit there for 20 minutes. Nobody knows. Nobody is watching. You're just sitting there letting the room be what it is. That's the whole thing about level 2. The upgrade isn't the space, it's the feeling that you're allowed to just sit somewhere without feeling like you're in the way. There's a bathtub in the bathroom, separate from the shower. Deep. White. The kind that takes 15 minutes to fill. You don't use it, but you look at it 3 times throughout the evening. Every time you open the bathroom door, you look at it, like you're keeping it as an option for later. You don't use it. The minibar is stocked. You check the prices before opening anything, obviously. You open one small bottle of sparkling water at $9.30. You already did the math, $6. You decide it's worth it. You drink it slowly, like it costs $6. The checkout bill still makes you pause the next morning. You pay it without saying anything. But you notice it. That night you call a friend. You describe the room in more detail than necessary. The sofa, the bathtub you didn't use, the way the light came through the curtains. Your friend says, "That sounds nice." You say, "Yeah." What you mean is, "I didn't know rooms could feel like this." What you mean is, "I want this to be normal for me." What you mean is, "I think I just discovered something expensive about myself." You check out at 11, standard checkout. You didn't ask for late. On the way to the parking lot, you look back once, not at anything specific, just back. Liking that feeling is the most expensive discovery you'll ever make. Not because of what the room costs, because of how much you'll be willing to pay, from here on, to feel it again. Age 31. $850 a night. You're not alone this time. That changes everything about the room. You booked it for a trip you'd been planning for 8 months, a real long weekend. The kind where you turn off work notifications and actually mean it, not the kind where you turn them off and then check anyway every 15 minutes. The rate was $850 a night. You looked at the number, you felt it, you booked it anyway. You told yourself it was a special occasion. That was true. But it wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth is you've been thinking about that sofa in the junior suite for 4 years, and this time you wanted more than a sofa. The suite has a door, not the door to the hallway. A door inside the suite, between the bedroom and the living room. You open it and close it twice before unpacking. Sounds simple, a door between 2 rooms. But you stand there and you get something nobody teaches you directly. For the first time in your life, you can actually afford privacy. The first night is everything you wanted it to be. Dinner in the room. The city through floor-to-ceiling windows. A bottle of wine that costs more than your very first hotel stay. You don't do the math this time. You just sit there together, talking. Not about anything important, just talking the way you used to before schedules and responsibilities started filling the space between sentences. The room made that possible. The space made that possible. You don't say this out loud, but you feel it. The second night you disagree about something. Start small, the way these things always do. A comment, a tone, a silence that lasts slightly longer than it should. In every apartment you'd shared before this, a disagreement meant proximity. Same room, same air. Nowhere to go without making it a statement. Here, one of you moves to the living room. The door closes, not slammed, just closed. Quietly, with intention. Here's the thing nobody thinks to tell you about the one-bedroom suite at 31. You can afford distance now. Physical distance. A door between you and the tension while both of you breathe. 15 minutes. Separate rooms. Then one of you opens the door and whatever it was is smaller than it was before. That door cost $850 a night. You'll think about that door for years. Not because of the argument, because before that trip, you'd never had enough space to know that space changes things. At some point during the trip, you think about your mom. She'd love this room, the view, the bathtub, the way the sheets feel, she'd love all of it. But she'd also fold her clothes the second she arrived, place her bag in the corner out of the way, and spend the first hour slightly unsure where to put herself. Not ungrateful, just not quite sure she was allowed to take up the full space. You catch yourself starting to do the same thing. Then you stop. You're not sure which of those 2 facts means more. Checkout is Sunday morning. You take longer getting ready than usual. Neither of you says why. The drive home feels like coming back from a different country. Same road. Something different inside the car. At 31, the one-bedroom suite doesn't sell you a room. It sells you a version of your relationship with more room to breathe. The question you don't ask yet, the one that will take years to surface, is whether the breathing room revealed something real, or just made it easier to avoid. Age 36, $3,200 a night. You don't remember deciding to book this level. That's the first sign you've crossed something. You remember booking the junior suite at 27. The whole deliberation, scrolling up, that $90 more sitting in your chest before you confirmed. This time there was none of that. Your assistant sent 3 options. You looked for maybe 4 seconds. You said the middle one. She confirmed it. That was the whole process. 3 days before arrival, an email arrives. Not a confirmation, not a promotional offer. A short note from someone named Claire who introduces herself as your suite coordinator. She has 2 questions. Your preferred coffee strength in the morning. Whether you'd like the room set to a cooler temperature before arrival, given the weather this week. You answer both in under a minute. You don't think about it again. The car pulls up. Someone is already at the door. Not waiting, already moving toward you, already knowing which car is yours. He says your name the way you say the name of someone you've been expecting. Not a guest, a specific person they've been preparing for. Your bag is gone before you reach the desk. Check-in takes 4 minutes. Most of that is conversation, not process. A woman named Soren asks about your flight. She already knows you flew in. She asks if you'd like anything sent up. You say you're fine. You are already being taken care of. You just don't have a word for it yet. The suite door opens. You walk in and sit in the chair by the window. You notice that someone designed this room, so your hand naturally lands near the light switch without looking for it. The table is exactly the height where you'd set a glass without thinking. The lamp casts light in the direction you'd want, without you needing to angle it. Nothing announces itself. Everything just works. That's different from every room before this one. In every other hotel, you spent the first 20 minutes figuring out where things were, getting your bearings in the space. Here you just arrived. There's coffee on the table, the exact strength you specified 3 days ago. A physical newspaper. You mentioned it once in a preference form 14 months ago at a different property in the same hotel group. They remembered. You didn't. The floor butler appears twice the first day. Once to ask about dinner reservations. Once to bring something you mentioned offhandedly in the elevator. A specific water you prefer, which you said without thinking as you walked past him toward the room. He was gone before you turned around. What's worth noticing isn't what he does. It's that you never see him doing it. That evening you reach for the minibar. Out of old habit, your eyes go straight to the price list first. You find it. You read it. Then you put it down and open the water anyway. The habit is still there. You just don't let it make decisions anymore. You'll realize this later, on the flight home, that this is what comfort actually does. It doesn't erase the old reflexes. It just covers them, one layer at a time, until you stop noticing they're still running underneath. The suite took away something you'd been carrying long enough that you'd stopped feeling the weight of it. The awareness of cost, not the cost itself. The awareness. And once that starts to go, once you stop feeling that friction, the levels below get very hard to return to. Not impossible, just uncomfortable in a way you can't fully explain to anyone who hasn't crossed the same line. Somewhere in the last 48 hours, without a single moment you can point to, the hotel stopped being a place you navigate. It became something that happened to you. The shift doesn't happen when you check in. It happens when you check out and realize you never once felt like a guest. You felt like the reason the room existed. That's a completely different experience. And it's not one you'll easily explain to most people in your life. Age 41, $8,500 a night. The room has a name, not a number, not a floor and a sequence. A name. The presidential suite, the royal, the Coco Chanel. The name is on the key card, on the welcome letter, on the small brass plate beside the door that you notice on the way in and don't mention to anyone. You stand in front of that plate a moment longer than necessary. Then you go inside. The booking didn't happen on a website. No search bar, no date picker, no drop down for number of guests. You mentioned it to someone who mentioned it to someone else. 3 days later, a number you didn't recognize called your phone. A man named Theodore confirmed the details in the unhurried way of someone who manages very few things but manages them completely. He didn't ask for your credit card. He already had it. When you arrive, no one asks your name. They already know which car. They already know which bag is yours. A woman at the entrance says good evening and walks slightly ahead of you toward the elevator. Leading. The way someone leads when they know exactly where you're going and want you to feel like you're being taken somewhere, not finding it yourself. You don't check in at a desk. There is no desk moment. You are simply already inside the suite. The room is significant. That's the honest word for it. High ceilings, original details preserved rather than renovated away. A writing desk under a window that looks out over a city that has been there for several hundred years. You sit at the desk. You don't write anything. You look at the armrest. The leather is worn smooth in one specific spot, the place where a hand rests naturally when someone is thinking. You catch yourself wondering who sat here long enough to wear it down like that. How many hours that took. Whether they knew they were leaving something behind. You put your hand in the same spot. Then you feel slightly self-conscious about it and look out the window instead. Later you look up the history of the suite on your phone. You find out who stayed here. A world leader in 1961, a filmmaker whose work you admire, a musician whose records you wore out in your 20s. The room doesn't feel different after you read that, but you feel different in the room. That's what a named suite actually sells. Not history, not square footage, not the brass plate, a context, a place inside a story that was already being told before you arrived. Whether that's worth $8,500 a night depends entirely on whether you know the story. If you do, the price almost feels modest. If you don't, it's just an expensive room with old furniture and a name you can't place. You have dinner alone that night, room service. A long meal with a book you've been meaning to finish for 6 months. You finish it. You pour a second glass of wine. At some point you look up from the book and just look at the room. You think, I am 41 years old sitting in a room with a name. Then you think, I wonder if this is what I was working toward, or if this is just what happened while I was working toward something else. You don't answer the question. You finish the wine. You go to bed. The question is still there in the morning. A named suite doesn't sell you a room. It sells you a reflection. The question, the one that follows you to breakfast and on to the flight home, is whether you like what you see in it. At 41, the question still has an answer you can sit with. What changes at 46 is that the question stops being philosophical. It becomes logistical. And that shift from wanting a room to needing one is the quietest crossing of all. Age 46, $22,000 a night. You didn't book this because you wanted it. That's new. Every room before this one, the junior suite at 27, the one bedroom at 31, the luxury suite at 36, you booked because something in you reached for it. A want. A decision that felt like a small act of becoming someone. This one was different. Your assistant sent the options. You looked for 3 seconds. You said the penthouse. Not because the penthouse was what you wanted, because everything below it had a problem. The one bedroom didn't have space for the morning meeting. The luxury suite didn't have a separate room for Owen, your chief of staff, who travels with you now on anything over 3 days. The floor below had noise issues from the event space. Your security coordinator flagged it. The penthouse didn't have those problems. That was the entire decision. 48 hours before arrival, a coordinator emails Owen a checklist, temperature preference, dietary requirements for the working breakfast. Whether you prefer the main bedroom facing the park or the water, Owen handles it. You don't see the checklist. When you land, there's a car. Not a car service. A specific car, already at the right terminal, already knowing your flight was delayed and adjusted accordingly. At the property, there's no lobby. You've walked through lobby entrances your whole life. The plastic plant, the desk, the keycard sliding across the counter. 24 years of lobbies. Tonight there's no lobby. There's a door, an elevator, then the suite floor. The coordinator is waiting at the elevator. The door is already open. The room is already at the exact temperature you prefer. Nobody asks if you need anything. The asking was handled before you landed. The penthouse is 4,000 square feet across the top floor. You don't register this as luxury anymore. You register it as logistics. The meeting table fits 6 comfortably. Owen has his own room on the east side. The main bedroom is far enough from the street that the city goes quiet when the windows close. Floor-to-ceiling glass on 3 sides. The city below in every direction. You stand at the window for a moment. 46 floors up. The streets are down there. The traffic, the noise, 10,000 small emergencies of a city moving through its evening, but none of it reaches you from here. That's what you're paying for. Not the view, the distance. Sometime after midnight, you're standing in the kitchen eating almonds from a small glass jar you found in the pantry. You skipped dinner during back-to-back calls. Nobody prepared this for you. You just found it, opened it, and stood there in the kitchen of a $22,000 a night penthouse eating almonds alone in the dark. The city is still lit up outside. You eat another handful. You're not thinking about anything in particular. And then for no reason you can identify, you think about the air conditioner. The one in room 314. That sound like a truck idling 1 block away. Constant, low. The keycard sliding across the counter without eye contact. You haven't thought about that room in years. You're thinking about it now. Not with sadness. With something that doesn't have a clean name. The feeling of standing very far from somewhere you used to be, being able to measure the distance, but not quite cross it back. 24 years. Somewhere that air conditioner is still running, a different guest, a different 22-year-old turning on the TV for the sound of a human voice. You put the jar back. You go to bed. The working breakfast is at 7:30. Owen runs the agenda. By 9, 3 decisions have been made. The room made that possible. Not the view, the space. The fact that everything was handled before you arrived so that when you arrived you could think. You still fold the hotel receipt before throwing it away. You've done it at every level. You have no idea why you still do it here. You do it anyway. At 46, the penthouse isn't the most expensive option. It's the minimum viable option. That sentence would have been incomprehensible to you at 22. Standing in room 314 with the flat pillow and the loud air conditioner and the TV on for company, you would not have believed it. Not because it sounds impossible, because it sounds like a different person entirely. You are. Age 53. $41,000 a night. You don't call it a suite anymore. The word stopped fitting somewhere around level 5. A suite is a room with a name. This is something else. A compound within a property. Your own entrance. Your own pool. Your own kitchen stocked before you arrive by someone who has your preferences on file and doesn't need to confirm them. The resort exists around you. You never need to enter it. Theodore, the same man who handled the named suite booking 12 years ago, manages this one too. He calls Owen on a Tuesday. By Thursday, everything is arranged. You don't see the correspondence. You land on Saturday. The car goes to a different gate than the other guests. A private path through the property leads directly to your villa. You don't pass the lobby, the restaurant, the pool area. You don't see the other guests. They don't see you. Most of the staff never see your full reservation. The villa team knows. 6 people. Everyone else on the property knows only that the East Villa is occupied and the East Villa path is closed. That's the architecture of privacy at this level. Not walls, information, who knows what and how much. The villa door is open when you arrive. Living room, dining room, 3 bedrooms, a kitchen. A pool running along the edge of the property above the water below. You walk to the window. The ocean is there, enormous, moving, completely indifferent to what this room costs. You press a button on the wall panel. The sound changes. The light shifts slightly. The ocean is still visible, but it's behind something now. Windows thick enough that when they close, the ocean goes quiet. You stand there, the ocean on one side of the glass, you on the other. That evening you sit by the pool, no phone after 7. A glass of something you've been drinking for 30 years that someone knew to have ready without being asked. You think about calling someone. Not because you're lonely. Because you want to say something about this place. The ocean behind the glass, the silence you paid to protect, the way the resort disappears around you. And you're not sure who to call. You pick up the phone. You almost text an old friend a photo of the water. You stop. You put the phone down. It's not anything dramatic. You just don't know how to explain why the silence feels expensive. And sending the photo without that explanation feels like sending the wrong thing. So you sit there instead. With the drink, and the pool, and the invisible resort somewhere beyond the path. It's exactly what you wanted. You're not sure what to do with exactly what you wanted. You don't photograph the villa. You haven't photographed a hotel room in years. At 22, you photographed the parking lot view and sent it to your mom. At 27, you described the junior suite sofa to a friend in more detail than necessary. At 31, you called from the one bedroom and talked for an hour. Those people are still in your life. The friendships are real, the relationships intact. But somewhere along the way, the language quietly changed. Not with any argument or falling out, just gradually, the way dialects drift when people stop living in the same place. You speak a version of the world now that the people you grew up with have never needed to learn, and when you try to speak their version, you sometimes reach for a word and find you've lost some of the fluency. That's not loneliness. It's something more specific and more permanent. The most expensive villa in the world gives you everything you asked for. What it cannot give you is someone who speaks the same language as the version of you that lives here now. You didn't lose the people, you lost the translation. Age 61. The hotel comes to you. You're not sure exactly when it changed. Gradual shifts don't announce themselves, you just notice one day. The way you notice a habit you've had for years without naming it. The last property you stayed at had no check-in desk. The desk just wasn't part of how your arrival was designed. There was an entrance, a coordinator at the elevator, a door already open, the room already at the exact temperature. For 39 years, you arrived after everything was ready. Now you arrive before. It starts small. A property in Lisbon you stayed at twice, 3 years apart. The second time, Owen handled the booking on short notice. When you arrived, the suite coordinator mentioned quietly, almost offhandedly, that they'd kept notes from your previous stay. The coffee strength, the newspaper, the curtains left partially open rather than fully drawn. They didn't ask, they just did it. You didn't think much about it at the time. Then it happens again. Different property, different city, same feeling. A detail you mentioned once 14 months earlier, waiting for you when you arrive. Accurate, specific. Unrequested. You start noticing certain places remembering you before you book again. Then someone from the corporate side reaches out to Owen directly. Not Theodore, someone above Theodore. She asks, very gently, very professionally, whether you might consider staying at their newest property before it opens to the public. Before it opens. They want you there first, not as a reviewer, not as an investor, simply as a presence. The kind that means something to a property still deciding what kind of place it wants to be. Owen mentions it over coffee on a Wednesday. You think about it for 2 days. You go. The property isn't finished when you arrive. Some guest rooms are still being furnished. The outdoor terrace isn't operational. 3 pool cabanas have no furniture. Your villa is complete, fully staffed, everything in place. You walk through the unfinished parts on the first morning. Corridors still finding their arrangement, workers nodding as you pass. You think about the plastic plant in the lobby of the first hotel, the dust on the leaves, the desk where the woman didn't look up. You've been inside 1,000 lobbies, 1,000 check-in moments, 1,000 keycards sliding across counters. Now you're walking through a building before any guest has arrived. You spend 4 days there. On the last morning, the woman who reached out has breakfast with you on the terrace. She asks specific questions. The corridor lighting on the 3rd floor. The distance between the villa entrance and the main path. The breakfast menu. You answer honestly. Some things work, some things don't yet. She writes everything down. You watch her write, and you think, somewhere, a small decision is being made based on what you just said. The corridor lighting, maybe? Something a future guest will experience without knowing why it feels right. That guest won't know your name. They won't know you sat here on a Tuesday in October and mentioned that the light was slightly too warm. They'll just feel that the corridor is right. On the flight home, you think about the pasta show. The man with the calm voice explaining something simple. Room 314. The air conditioner running all night. You were 22 years old and you turned on the television because the silence was too large for one person. You think about that 22-year-old the way you think about someone you knew a long time ago. Fondly. With a distance you can measure but not quite cross. He checked the cancellation policy 3 times. He rehearsed how to ask about late checkout. He sat on a sofa for 20 minutes just to sit there. He photographed a parking lot and sent it to his mother. He still thought he was paying for a place to sleep. He didn't know yet what the room was actually measuring. The distance between that room and this one was never about money. It was about what the money revealed, level by level, year by year. What you needed and what you stopped needing. What you gained and what quietly disappeared. The language you used to share and how gradually it became untranslatable. The rooms changed, you changed, and the distance between those two versions of you is the whole story. It started with a keycard sliding across a counter without eye contact. 3rd floor, elevator on the left. Somewhere tonight, a 22-year-old is booking a hotel room for the first time with his own money. He's in a parking lot. The Wi-Fi keeps cutting out before the payment clears. He checks the cancellation policy 3 times. He picks the cheapest room. He reads the reviews carefully. He wonders if this is a smart decision. He doesn't know this is the first step of a very long journey. He doesn't need to know. Not tonight. He still thinks he's paying for a place to sleep.